Hello, welcome to Access. My name is Nathan and the Nioh Collection is out now on PlayStation 5.
It includes remastered versions of both Nioh 1 and 2 with all story expansions. As regular viewers might know, I love Nioh.
I have the Platinum Trophy for the first game.
But this re-release is the perfect opportunity for me to admit that at no stage during the game did I really have any idea what was going on. Well, not quite true. I knew it took place in Japan and that I was a Westerner killing demons and meeting a whole load of generals, lords and warriors. But I was very focused on killing the pale snake man who'd stolen my guardian spirit lady, and the rest seemed pretty complicated.
And to be fair to me, having gone back and done a bunch of research until I understood everything, it is pretty complicated.
But understanding it all also makes the games much better. So, here is a quick look at what the heck is going on in Nioh. Now, a top level thing that I simply did not understand last time. Nioh is a mythic story about the founding of modern Japan, as much as it is a story about beating up demons. It's set during the Sengoku, or Warring States period, when the country was fragmented and various clans were jostling for power.
I knew this already. What I didn't grasp was that it tells this story with constant reference to Japan's three great unifiers:
Oda Nobunaga, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, and Tokugawa Ieyasu. And also through guardian spirits, demons, magical stones,
and a man from my hometown.
So the reason I didn't realise any of this before is because I was focused on the hero of Nioh, Will Adams. This is interesting to me because I grew up in Gillingham. And so did Will Adams. The real one, not the one they made Irish in the game for some reason.
It seems death won't stop chasing me.
I am a Kentish man, born in a town called Gillingham, 2 English miles from Rochester, 1 mile from Chatham, where the King's ships lie. This is from a letter that Adams wrote home from Japan because he was not only real, he was also the first recorded Englishman to visit the country. And this line about the King's ships is a reference to Chatham Royal Dockyard, which at the time was a powerhouse facility key to Britain's long-standing naval superiority, and then later was somewhere I gave guided tours in a funny hat for a summer job. There's a memorial to Will Adams at home, and a road. He's a pretty big deal, even if he wasn't really magical. Take your hands off him, Ireland. It's mentioned in the game that Adams fought the Spanish Armada. He really did, and the ships seen here in the game really are the 5 Dutch vessels with which he sailed to Japan. He wasn't a pirate though, even though Portuguese Jesuits living in Japan when he arrived tried to have him executed as one. Not today, Portuguese Jesuits. Moving on, Nioh's bad guy is called Edward Kelly, who I am happy to say was not from Gillingham. He was real though, and English too. Kelly was an occultist and medium, although in real life he was dead before Adams even arrived in Japan. Or was he? Yes, he was.
Which brings us to the more confusing bits, which is everything else.
So, the real Will Adams arrives in Japan in April 1600, and it's the Sengoku period. Right at the end of it, actually, the decisive battle will happen in October. Crazy, true timing. Also crazy, the first person of note Adams meets is Tokugawa Ieyasu, who, as I mentioned, will become the last of 3 great unifiers of Japan, after Oda Nobunaga and Toyotomi Hideyoshi, and it's that battle in October that will seal his power. Basically, Adams arrived at a crucial moment of crisis and significance in Japanese history. Toyotomi Hideyoshi has just died, sparking the current conflict between those trying to support his nominated heir, a tiny child, and other powerful lords. What Adams steps into is Tokugawa on one side and the loyalists, led by Ishida Mitsunari, on the other. Both of them until very recently part of Toyotomi's inner circle.
Now, I don't think this is news to anyone who has an even basic grasp of Japanese history, which is why it was news to me.
And as the game operates by blending real events with not only the supernatural but sometimes a fun alternative version of these events, if you don't know them in the first place, it's easy to lose track. In real life, Adams' involvement in these events was peripheral. Tokugawa kept Adams in prison for a bit and then had him build some ships and gave him a house. The game, though, puts Adams in the thick of things, touring the country, meeting historical figures, and in so doing it references many of the intrigues, betrayals and power plays that occurred during this period, a period that was frequently messy as hell. So for instance, the first person Adams meets in the game is Hattori Hanzo, a famous ninja of the period who served Ieyasu and the Tokugawa clan. In the game, he becomes your constant companion, but he was kinda dead when Adams actually arrived, and I'm not even sure he really had a cap for a pocket watch.
Dawn is breaking.
A little later, you meet Takebana Munoshiga. You rescue him in the mission Spirit Stone Slumbers. He fought for Hideyoshi Toyotomi, who famously, although not so famously I knew before I looked it up, said that Takebana was the best warrior in the west of Japan, while Honda Tadakatsu, who also appears in the game, was the best in the east. You fight them both during the game, even though, and this is a point worth making, they're not really villains. One is Kelly in disguise and the other is bewildered by magic. This can also be confusing when trying to work out who everyone is in the game, but basically it is worth accepting that Nioh will have you fight just about everyone. In fact, fighting is more like a handshake, a way of engaging with these characters and their legends than it is about whether they're good or bad. One quick aside, both these warriors later become challenging optional bosses in submissions, the name of which, Warrior of the West and Champion of the East, are a tribute to Hideyoshi's quote. Munoshiga's fight takes place in this very picturesque cliffside spot which you might remember me making a video about at the time, in which I casually mentioned fighting the boss, probably 60 or 70 goes in total, 60 or 70 times.
That's a lot of times.
Anyway, going back and adding context to this bit of the game was kind of amazing. And this happens all the time. You'll meet people in the game, bosses or minor NPCs or even just as summonable revenants, and they won't be crucial to the story, but they are real historical figures providing a depth of frankly bewildering context.
But then a lot of the bits of history referenced in the game relate to the three unifiers directly, often the messiest bits.
Oda Nobunaga, the first great unifier, becomes part of the story when Adams investigates the frozen city of Kyoto and fights Yuki Onna at Honnoji Temple, who turns out to be Lord Nobunaga's dead wife, Lady Nioh, resurrected and transformed into an angry icy yokai by Kelly's evil. Once defeated, she tells you about the very real betrayal known as the Honnoji incident, where one of Nobunaga's own generals turned on him, which led to his death and the rise of Toyotomi in 1582. And messier still, you might remember one of the earliest bosses we featured on the channel was the Ogress. I knew she was meant to be a yokai conjured by the fury of a dead noblewoman, but now I understand she's actually Tokugawa's wife, Lady Tsukuyama, and she mad. Their son, Matsudera Nobuyasu, was married to a daughter of Nobunaga. This is back when Nobunaga was still in charge, but the marriage produced no sons, so Lady Tsukuyama tried to arrange a concubine for her son. Nobunaga learned of the scheme though, and Tokugawa,
rather than risk his alliance with the powerful ruler, executed his wife and imprisoned his son, and then asked him to commit suicide, which he did.
Basically, the point here is that there's a real wealth of deep references to decades of historical events in the game, and also, while the game is a founding myth, it doesn't try to sanitize the actions of the unifiers. All three are presented as leaders who truly desired peace, but who could be ruthless in pursuing it. Weird Irish Will Adams is quite conflicted about the whole thing.
Very well. I'm going to save that stubborn old man.
Actually, they're all presented like that, except Nobunaga, who is made out to be a bloodthirsty monster. As the struggle for power comes to a head, Ishida Mitsunari reveals his plan is to resurrect his lord, Toyotomi, which I guess is one way to solve the succession crisis, just make the dead person who caused it come alive again. But Kelly wants to resurrect Nobunaga.
I will resurrect the most brutal overlord of them all.
I mean, the next two guys murdered literally dozens of their own family, but sure. And that's basically what happens. Although before that, there's big news when you defeat Munoshiga and the priest who's been helping you through the game is revealed to be Akechi Mitsuhide. And I had no idea who this was. This meant nothing to me. But now I know this is the general who betrayed Nobunaga at the Honnoji incident in 1582. He's now known as the 13-day shogun, as his attempt to take control of Japan lasted 13 days before Toyotomi defeated him. These days he's very big on the greater good and service of history. Then Kelly runs off and does resurrect Nobunaga, who I guess makes for a suitably epic final boss. The first great unifier, the bad one. Except at the end of the fight, he won't kill you or do what Kelly says. He didn't unify all of Japan by being pushed around by pale guys in cloaks. Here's the game's big myth-building message, that the unifiers were not perfect, but were guided by a higher purpose. Nobunaga says he has no regrets, and his path has been followed by the monkey and the tanuki, the spirits of Toyotomi and Tokugawa. And that's pretty much the end of the game, except for stabbing Kelly in the chest, the resurrection of Pocket Cat, some tidying up in London, and everything that happens in the DLC.
So then, Nioh 2.
Don't worry, there is much less to say about Nioh 2, and there will be no spoilers, because this video is about how the world of Nioh works, and I feel like I've explained that already. The key takeaways are, it's about the formation of Japan, about 3 great leaders, and it's about a way of playing with history to tell a fantastic story that still holds an element of truth. And also no spoilers, because Nioh 2 is for the most part a prequel, so it relies on an understanding of the things we've already talked about. The game starts in 1555 and basically charts the rise to power of Hideyoshi Toyotomi, who had just died before the first game began, although according to Nioh 2, Hideyoshi is secretly 2 people, your customizable part yokai protagonist and a friendly merchant, in the same way that in the first game the hero of Gillingham, Will Adams, is secretly Irish, I guess. Anyway, you play as the second great unifier and find yourself in the service of unifier number 1, Oda Nobunaga. Other looming figures from this period of history, like Shibata Katsui, Maeda Toshi, and Akechi Mitsuhide, appear in Nioh 2 just as others did in Nioh 1. And I'm not ashamed to admit that when I first played Nioh 2, I was completely confused about everything. I mean, I didn't have a good grasp of who this guy was, and then there were 2 of him, and I didn't know why I was in the past, and nobody was from Gillingham. So far, I haven't gone back to make it to the end, but I'm going to. And now I get to do that on PlayStation 5. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Really, I hope that it's either helped you to enjoy Nioh a little bit more, or think about giving Nioh a try. Subscribe for more videos like this, give this one a like, and we'll see you again soon.